And so there we are. Liverpool's first title-winning season in 30 years has come to an end. The Reds end the campaign with a grand total of 99 points, having beaten Newcastle United by 3-1 at St James's Park. Joining me to Liverpool's 32nd league win of the Premier League season on the Blood Red channel for this debrief is Theo Squires. Theo, first of all, before we properly dissect the game, incredible.
In a remarkable campaign to cover. Really special to think that since the resumption after lockdown and everything, it's been almost a bit of a limp over the finish line, but they've still got more points than last season. It's just a testament to how Liverpool are under Jurgen Klopp, that he can make 5 changes. Another step in the right direction. It's what is the next step for this team? Can they go on and create this dominant era? And you wouldn't back against them, would you?
Yeah, it wasn't the most scintillating performance or the most exciting match, but I suppose that kind of sums it up this season, that Liverpool have just been relentless, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. They've just kept winning.
Yeah, it's the sign of champions, isn't it? That's why they are champions. Really thrilling stuff, and it's not been enough. It got some great victories along the way, but maybe the defence has not been quite what it should be. And it turns out go about it this more mature way to make sure they do results. They don't have to terrorise every team in their path and beat them 5-0, 6-0. They need to just get the job done and do what's required. And it is showing this like winning mentality that they have built. And to turn them into winners.
Absolutely. And of course, they won today, and we'll go through each of the goals. First of all, Newcastle, of course, took the lead.
Or anything, and you're thinking, hang on, is it being called back? Is it being given? And then there's such a long delay with VAR as well. I think Gino and Adam, you can sort of see feeling a bit too kind, going back to his former club, throwing the ball straight back to Shelvey for the free kick. Could have maybe killed that a bit more. And then you've got question marks on, say, Joe Gomez is covering Nico Williams, playing him on side, but he's a young lad. It's the first minute of the game. You expect to fall asleep a little bit. You can sort of forgive it. You just don't expect to be behind inside 30 seconds. And of all the players, it would be Dwight Gale, wouldn't it? Liverpool have been burnt by him before. But Liverpool bounced back well. They didn't let it get them down at all. They dominated possession throughout the first half, and they never looked like they were going to think, oh, this is going to be a defeat to end the season. And they wanted to make sure they ended it the right way. And whilst Liverpool kept on threatening, even before they got their opening goal, they did a good job keeping Newcastle quiet as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Nico Williams there, probably slightly at fault with that back line on the first goal, but I thought generally he did quite well today. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, looking at these starting lineups, it should have been a difficult afternoon for him. He's against Alan Saint-Maximin, who's like Newcastle's best player. He's been so lively this season. He's got lots of pace, and you think, well, just watch him target the young fullback. Liverpool have seen it in the past with, say, Marcus Rashford targeting Trent Alexander-Arnold, and you'd expect them to struggle a bit in those circumstances. But he didn't really. He managed to cope with it reasonably well. I know he got, I think, withdrawn at half-time, the Newcastle lad, but he put in another good performance. Was getting forward well, putting another few good crosses. Granted, you could say he wasn't in line for the Newcastle goal, but Liverpool's back four, it's been what part of their strength is. It's just the same back four week in, week out, and they've got that relationship. It's always going to be hard for a youngster to come into that, or not even just a youngster, any player to come into that and pick up where they left off. We've seen Dejan Lovren, Joel Matip, when they've been out for a while, go into that back line and they've made mistakes and it's not had the same fluidity. So you can't really blame Nico Williams for not being quite in sync with the rest of them, but it was another encouraging performance from him as he begins to really settle into this Liverpool squad.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, Liverpool then levelled through that Virgil van Dijk header. Excellent work from Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain with a great ball in. Chamberlain, I didn't think had the best game, but I suppose it's not really his best position, is it? That was a good moment from him, but he tends to do his best work in midfield.
Yeah, that's true. It's part of the reason why Liverpool signed him in the first place, because he wanted to play in midfield rather than be this wide player. But he has got the ability to take men on and get crosses in. He's got a very good cross on him when he has been given the opportunity. And I think you always got to remember that Liverpool made 5 changes, and it was the whole front three. So as good as the regulars are, when you put 3 players together who rarely play together, especially from the start, it's not going to look quite the same. And he still did a good job. Granted, he wasn't at his best, but I think it's been that sort of season from Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think the most positive thing for him is he's got a couple of winners' medals, and he's not picked up another major injury or anything. He's got through it unscathed, because it does take time to come back from such an injury. And while he's not putting in the sort of performances Liverpool fans saw before the injury, it's still been a valuable player of the squad, hasn't he? Been contributing goals, contributing assists. And while he's not been electrifying, he's doing his job. He's been respectable. You can say that for a number of players in this Liverpool team who've been in and out. When the starting 11 is so good, playing every week, it's hard for the rest to find that consistency, regardless of the position they're played in, whether it's their favoured one or one to just fit around.
Yeah, another member of that front three to come in was, of course, Divock Origi, who put Liverpool in front. A decent strike. I thought the goalkeeper maybe should have done a little bit better than what he did. But what did you make of Origi's performance today? Because I suppose it was a little bit like usual, and it was a little bit mixed.
Yeah, Divock Origi's always a strange player, isn't he? Because he'll go missing for half a game, but then he'll sort of feel it a bit more. He'll get a bit more physical with defenders, and you just think, oh, his touch is off or something, or he's not quite on it. And then out of nowhere, he'll go and score a decent goal like that. It's the sort of finish we've seen him produce so many times. He loves cutting inside from the left and just curling it into that corner. It was a good finish from him, and I think it helped him as he grew into the game as it went along. But he was in his favoured central position rather than being shifted out wide. He was so good, obviously, for Liverpool at the end of last season when Jurgen Klopp turned to him as the central striker. We've not really seen him there much this season, but he's still got quality. I think it was his, first goal of 2020. With the whole pandemic and everything, we don't know what the market's going to be like in the transfer window. And so whilst, say, in a normal season, it might have been the end of his Liverpool career, you'd say he's probably still going to have another season, another 6 months at the club. And it's good that he can show that he can still contribute when given the chances. But I'm sure, like every Liverpool fan, every journalist, they want to see more consistency from him because he's got the talent. He's shown he's got the talent, but he doesn't produce it enough. And there are times when he's given the opportunity and he doesn't grab it. Like he wasn't at his best today, but he got his goal. That's what you're going to remember come the final whistle.
Yes, Divock Origi on the left, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain on the right. And the only one that we haven't mentioned is Takumi Minamino, who, of course, played through the middle. Lots of fans seemingly very happy with the way that he performed. And I suppose it was another promising moment. He didn't quite get his goal, but he still had a decent performance today.
Yeah, he's one that seems to get better with every game he plays. He was unlucky not to score. He had that shot where he cut inside, had an effort from distance. But he's always going to take time for him to get up to speed with the Premier League and with this Liverpool team. It's not as though he's gone into one of the mid-table teams when it's going to be playing every week. He's gone into the best team in Europe, and he's got to almost perform straight away because when he's had his opportunities, it's in place of one of that famous front three. But I think Jurgen Klopp's always been very patient with him. There's been this realism about him that we're not going to see the best from him in this first season, the same as other players in the past. But whereas fans have been impatient, say, with Oxlade-Chamberlain or Fabinho in the past, because Liverpool signed him, they want to see the best of him, they want to see him in the team straight away. Now there's that more trust for the manager with the team, and you think Minamino could just find his feet more, get used to this style. Liverpool in the past, they've lacked this proper deputy for Roberto Firmino. They've had to go for, say, Divock Origi, who offers something completely different. And it hasn't quite worked the same way. Whereas Minamino, when he does play centrally, he's shown he can do it. Granted, it's not at the same level, but it was another encouraging sign for him. I think let him have his break in the summer, have a full pre-season as part of this squad. He'll be a valuable player for Jurgen Klopp and for Liverpool next season.
Yeah, Jurgen Klopp said before the match the reason that he wanted to give those players a chance, really, in place of Salah, Mane and Firmino was just to reward them really for their desire and make sure that the whole squad got minutes. I mean, I suppose the usual front three would have been slightly disappointed not to have played today, but what did you make of that decision to make those changes?
It's one way you're going to be damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if you just put in your front three, your normal front three, and let them do their business, granted you'll get the goals, you'll get the win, but when you're missing them, then you look worse without them, if that makes sense. The reserve front three, they need the opportunities to get into that rhythm, to click with the rest of the team, to get confidence and everything. And granted, it's come in the last game of the season, but Liverpool have this front three that rarely miss a game. And there's always that fear that, well, what are they going to do if one of them is missing? You can't just play all three of them every single game and hope they don't break down and then turn to someone who you don't trust, who isn't quite in sync. It makes sense to give the others the opportunities when you can. I think it was quite telling, say, Shaqiri didn't get any game time. That says probably something about his future, because in the past he's been the next go-to off that bench, whereas all three, Origi, Minamino and Oxlade-Chamberlain, now seem to be ahead of him in the pecking order in those attacking roles. And they have been given more opportunities, granted not every week, but since the restart. So that is definitely some forward thinking from Jurgen Klopp, especially when there's this uncertainty whether Liverpool can go and strengthen in attacking wise in the summer. We know the Africa Cup of Nations won't be taking place next January, so there's not that same urgency to have the reserve options there, so there'll be more faith in what he's got. So it was a good opportunity for them to go and show what they could do, and I think pretty much all of them contributed better than we've seen in previous outings from them.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see plenty more of them in pre-season, which will roll around in not too many weeks' time. I think Liverpool are going to have 3 weeks off and then come back. But I suppose today's game was a fitting way to end the season. And just before we go, Theo, just your final reflections on the campaign, this, of course, being the last debrief of the season. I suppose Liverpool picking up another win is never a bad thing. And after a season like this, you wanted to get as close to that 100 points mark as possible.
Yeah, definitely. It's always felt a bit weird that there's this disappointment that Liverpool haven't broken that 100-point barrier, as though they've failed somewhat because of how far ahead they were and everything. But it's still, the second greatest Premier League season ever, the best in their history. It's been incredible from them. And if it wasn't for the pandemic and football shutting down for 3 months, they probably would have broken the records, because they've had more of that rhythm. It wouldn't have been so disruptive. They've had fans cheering them on and everything. You can get opposition fans saying, oh, the asterisk champions, all that sort of thing. But Liverpool are the best. They have been the best from the very start this season. They've topped the league, I think, from week 2 pretty much. And they're just an incredible team. Maintain that same intensity in games, but they turned it on against Chelsea midweek, and they've managed to finish the season with a win, which I think they deserved. It's disappointing that they haven't, say, got the 100 points, but as we've said, pretty much every single week from the start of the season and for the past
game of the season. Thank you very much for listening, and we will be back very soon indeed.